Okay, so this is a web app running against my Microsoft Access database, and I can deploy it out to users that don't even have access on their computers. They just need a web browser. And look, I can click around and filter this list here of these different measures that were used on climate change data, and it works awesome in the browser. And so we can build an interactive web report for Microsoft Access that makes it nice and easy for us to filter and sort data, like the data that you see in this access table on the bottom left there. So nice and easy, just click around in here and it automatically filters. That's what we're doing today. It's about 40 lines of code and all the tools are free. I'm your host, Sean McKenzie. Thanks for joining me once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our Microsoft Access playlist, and we're going to put a web report front end on our Microsoft Access database in about 20 minutes. Now, believe it or not, this includes the web server, all of the connectivity components and everything. Just a few lines of code are needed in order to specify what you want on your page. And this is all made possible through the amazing technology which is known as Streamlit. And we're going to do that in Python in about 30 or 40 lines of code. So brace yourselves. This is going to open up a whole new world for all of you Access developers out there. This is the first step. We're going to scratch the surface of Streamlit on Microsoft Access. Let's get to it. Interested in more cool topics like these? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. Okay guys, so this is the database that we are using. This is Microsoft Access, and I've created this mydatabase.accdb in that folder that you see there, and I grabbed the climate change data. Many thanks to the World Bank for this data. As you can see, it has a bunch of historical data in different fields. The years are actually along the top there as columns, and the rows show one measure for each. And we have some categorization there by country code and series or series code. And so we can use this data and we can create a web report. We could do an access report, but we would need every user to have access for that. Okay, so there's our column. We're going to take that year 2000 column, and then we're going to grab some of these fields along the way. So make a note of some of the names of these fields, and we are going to use those in our queries as we, filter and sort our web page that we're going to create for this. Okay, so we're going to need to install some stuff for this. You'll need to search that Microsoft Access redistributable. That's going to give you the ODBC driver that we're going to use today. If you don't have it already, you can go to the page that you find from Google there, and it gives you some instructions. When you're done installing that, then you'll get this access saying that the version has been installed. You'll also need to have a version of Python on your system. I would recommend version 3.11 or 3.12. I'm using 3.11 today since that is most compatible with PyTorch, which is in a previous episode that I did. So I'm using Python 3.11 for that reason, but you can use 3.12 if you want. So you'll go and you'll download the redistributable, and the 3.8 to 3.11 that you see there, that is for PyTorch. If you're following any of my PyTorch stuff, you'll know that you need to have a version in between there. In my opinion, the best one is 3.11.9, and that is the version that we're using today. So you can scroll down and you can check out all the different resources and things. You'll get to the files and you can just grab the Windows installer. We are going to be using the Windows 64-bit version of Python, and you'll want this bit version to match with the redistributable version that you just downloaded. So if you did the Access redistributable 64-bit, then you'll want to get the 64-bit Python, and that is what we're doing here. If you got 32, make sure to download the 32-bit version. And so we're going to run that. As administrator, I'm showing this on another computer here just to show the installation steps. We can take that install now, and we're not going to use the customization or customized installation. We're going to add Python exe to path. This is for a clean installation if you don't have Python already. Just follow the steps. make sure you click that Add Python to Path, and then when you hit Next, it's going to go ahead and install. And then at the very end, we're going to set one more setting that's going to allow us to have longer paths for our programming. So that'll just blast through there and install itself. And once it is done, it'll give you a message, and that'll be kind of like a final step. It has a disable path length limit. I recommend that you do check that one, as it can make things go a lot more smoothly. Next, we're going to open up the Windows command line as administrator, and we're going to type in some commands. So now we have Python installed, and so we have the ability to install things into Python. And so the first one we're going to do is we're going to get SQL Alchemy Access, pip install SQL Alchemy Access. That one should download and load up pretty quickly. That's the dialect we need for that. And then we'll do pip install pandas, which is sort of like the data frame objects and things like that that we're going to use. And then we're going to do pip install Streamlit. I'll let you guys do that one. I already have it installed on this computer. And then after you do that one, you can do pyodbc, because we will be using pyodbc. And so we'll put in pip install pyodbc. That's going to give us ODBC that we can use for our application, and we are good to go. Okay guys, there is our database in its folder, and I'm going to get you to open up Notepad++. If you don't have this, you can find it online. Just Google it. It is free, and you can start a new document, and we're going to choose the language Python, and that's going to get us ready to rock and roll here. And it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's only a few dozen lines that we're going to do here. We're going to do import Streamlit as ST, and that is going to give us reference to the Streamlit library, and that is one of the things we just downloaded using pip install there, which is great. And we'll import pandas as PD, and we'll import URL lib. That's going to create a URL for us, a special URL we're going to use to connect. And then from SQL Alchemy, we're going to import create engine, and we're going to use the Access database engine part of that. As you'll see here in a moment, there's a special dialect for Microsoft Access that's used in SQL Alchemy, which is actually pretty cool. And so we're going to create one function here, just one very simple function at the beginning of our script, and we're going to basically return an engine with the dialect for Microsoft Access that's used in SQL Alchemy. It sort of opens the gateway to our Microsoft Access world, and inside of that we're going to have a connection string. We're going to put driver equals Microsoft Access driver, and that'll have the star.mdb and actdb in it. And now make sure that, again, that you download if you're using 64-bit, you need to have the 64-bit driver. That means the 64-bit redistributable. You also have to have 64-bit Python, and all of that stuff has to be 64-bit. So make sure that you're using that, or you can use all 32-bit. So make sure it's either one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to get an error that says that you can't find the driver, even though it is in your ODBC driver manager there. Okay, so let's wrap this up. We're putting our database name in there. So we're going to pass in the access underscore DB. That'll be, C, /:dev/ whatever the database name is. And we'll put that in there when we ask for the engine back. And then we're going to do this funny little connection URL thing that is sort of like this magic wizardry that happens with SQL Alchemy. They have these funny little strings that they put in here, and it's kind of cool. And basically what it does is it creates a standard way of asking for this stuff. And so we're going to do access plus pyodbc, and then we're going to do ODBC connect. And then we're going to take that driver name, the connection string with the database name and everything, and it's going to basically convert it into a more readable format for the library here. So that's the input there. Using the connection string, we're going to use that URL lib library. You guys don't have to worry too much about this. It's pretty static. In fact, you can copy this function, from project to project that you work on, and then we'll create our access engine here, and that's where we're going to use that create engine, and we're going to plop in that CNN URL there that we created, and then we're just going to return it. So that's going to allow us to just say at any time, hey, give me an engine that connects to Microsoft Access. Let's rock and roll. And that's pretty much it. That's the function there. It's going to return the access engine that we created. You can also create a connection for SQL Server or Oracle or whatever, and each of those looks a little bit different. But today we're doing our Microsoft Access connection, and that's why we did the pip install SQL Alchemy access at the very beginning of this, because that gave us the dialect that we could use in order to talk with Microsoft Access using ODBC and SQL Alchemy. So there we go. So let's create our path. We're going to put in our path to our database file here. So I think it was cdev access streamlit web report and then mydatabase.accdb, and that's our path to the database. That R on the string there allows us to have those backslashes in there, from Windows, without screwing it up. You can actually also put the slashes the other way and it will work with a lot of the Python stuff, but we're not going to do that today. So we're going to say our engine is equal to the access engine that we just created, and we're going to put in that path, and it's going to return the engine to us. So now we have an engine. That's actually probably the hardest part of all of this, was just creating our engine, and then we're going to go from there. Now the next part is going to look really familiar to a lot of you guys who sort of have worked in Microsoft Access already for quite a while. And what we're going to be creating is our SQL string, kind of like we do when we're loading a combo box or something on the fly using VBA. We are going to create an SQL string. Now in the dialect of Access we would say strSQL. In Python things are a little bit simpler. We just say SQL equals, and we'll say select distinct country name from our climate change table, order by country name, and what that's going to give us is our drop-down list. And so it's going to give us a record set, and you might say, but in this case it's a data frame, and we're going to get the data frame by saying data frame underscore country equals pandas, which is that pd.readSQL, plunk in our SQL and the engine. Very straightforward, very fast to create your data frames or record sets as you would call them in Access. And in this case we've got a data frame for country, and we're going to do the same thing for our series, because we want to be able to filter our list by the country or by the series name. And so in this case what we're going to do is we're going to say SQL equals select distinct series name from climate change data, order by series name, and then we'll get a data frame for series. So we'll say data frame series is equal to pd.readSQL, and then again we just do SQL and the engine, and that's going to go and get that data for our drop downs. And following that, now we can start getting into our layout with Streamlit, and you're going to be just blown away at how easy this is. We're going to say, hey, we want 2 columns in our Streamlit. That's the Streamlit library up there. That's what we're using. That's that ST, so if you guys are wondering. So now we're moving into Streamlit territory, and we're saying we want 2 columns. We're going to say st.columns2. Now you could put call 1, call 2, call 3, and then put st columns 3 if you want 3 columns or whatever. And then you can go with column 1. We're going to say country is equal to, now note we're loading a variable here, and we're going to make that equal to a select box, which is a drop-down box or combo box, if you will, from Microsoft Access, if you guys are coming from there. st.select box, and we'll call it country, and we're going to put in that data frame, and that's it. It creates it on the page for us. It's so nice and easy. We're going to do checkbox. We'll do check all country, and we'll do that as a st.checkbox, and we'll say all countries as the tag for that. And that's really all it is. I mean, it just gets the value from those and loads it into the variable. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's all kinds of, I'm imagining all kinds of post backs and things like that in order to make this happen. But what they've done is they've simplified things just incredibly in order to make a web page, in order to make a web application that is easy for us to do. So now we'll just load the next column. We'll say, you know, series equals st.selectbox series, and we put our data frame for series in there. And then we'll do the same thing for the checkbox for all series, and we will put that checkbox in there, st.checkbox, and we'll say all series as our tag for that one. And that creates two columns with you know, a select box and a checkbox in each of those. And let's go check it out. Let's give it a try. So let's save this. And this is saving our Python file. So I've gone back to that directory C dev access streamlit web report. And we'll just give it a name, msaccess_streamlit, and we can save that. And now we've got a Python file sitting in our directory. And that is super easy. So we could at this point just go and see what it looks like. I mean, we can just launch it. I mean, we don't have our filter list or anything yet, but now we can go ahead and grab that administrator command window again, and we can just, you know, change our directory, use your cd cdev access streamlit web report, and then now that we're in that directory, we can call Streamlit, and the way you call it, of course, is you go Streamlit run and then the name of your Python file, and that sort of does a special way to run the Python file. So you don't just run the Python file, you have to, you know, give the command streamlit run msaccess_streamlit, and bam, wow, that was fast. So that, yeah, as soon as I hit go on that one, it came up, and now you can see this is what we created with those two columns. So we have a drop down and a checkbox in each of those columns, and that's really all there is. It doesn't really do anything yet. But you can see that it pops up in the browser. It comes up in the address bar, localhost and 8501 is the port number, and it also gives you that information here, and it says, you know, you can now view Streamlit app in your browser. Go here to see it, and they do give you the HTTP address there. You can see it there, and you can do all kinds of things with that. You can use something like ngrok, and you can expose it to the outside world, or you can just give people that address on your local network and open the port on your machine, and suddenly everybody can use your app. So it's pretty awesome. Now notice that I did not shut down Streamlit as we switched back to the coding window here, and that is because you can leave Streamlit running once you open it the first time, and you can change the code in your Python file, you know, move some columns around and add some widgets or whatever, some text boxes, some checkboxes and things like that. And you can add those in your code and then save it, and then just refresh the browser, and Streamlit will automatically grab those changes. So it's quite amazing that way, and quite an amazing feat that they've done. This is used quite heavily in prototyping and things like that, but for our local, you know, LAN apps, it's actually really handy and could be used for some production stuff. There are some considerations if you are going to expose this to the outside world. Make sure you follow the deployment advice on the website about those things. So that's also a consideration. Okay, so I'm creating another string here. It's a bit of a longer string. This is going to be our table that's going to get filtered, and I just made it kind of like a little bit longer. I'm going to take the country code, the series name, and the column for the year 2000, and I'm going to do from climate change data where the ID is not null. Now I know that ID is not null already. I'm just putting that in there because it's going to make it easier when I want to, selectively add some ands here, and, the series is equal to this. But if it's not looking at the series, then of course we don't want to do that. So we're going to say if the check all country is equal to false, so if it's not looking at all of the countries, then we're going to say, SQL plus equals means just, concatenate some on the end there, and country name equals and country, our country variable. Now remember, our country variable got loaded up on line 23 there. It's so easy. All we said was our country variable equals this checkbox or this select box, and that's pretty amazing that it can do that. And we can do the same thing for series. We're going to do if our check all series is equal to false, then and then we're going to concatenate onto the end of our SQL string and series name equals, and then the series. And of course we loaded the series in column 2 there, and you can see the series variable on line 26 there. And it's just so easy. We just load it up. That's the series that they chose, and away we go. So now we have ability to go, if the series is selected or not, and those kind of things. So we built our SQL string. Now all we do is we can say a data frame equals pandas read SQL, and again SQL in the engine, and then it's simply streamlit.table data frame. That's it. There's our final loading of our data frame, and loading that into a table in HTML for the browser, and it's got some styling attached to it already, and this is just amazing. So what do we have there? We got 35 lines of code. We'll save that 35 lines, and we'll go back to our browser, and you'll see it's just sort of sitting there waiting. But if I hit that refresh on my browser now, you're going to see a bit of a difference here, hopefully, if I didn't break anything. There we go. Okay, so I refreshed, and now we've got a list there. Let's grab Canada, and we'll say all series, and that's going to give us all the different measures for Canada for each of those things. And then if we select one of these guys here, GDP, and we remove the all series from it, it's going to give us just GDP for Canada. But if we say GDP and we select all countries, then we get the GDP for all countries. And so this is working awesome. This is exactly what we want to see here. Oops, I grabbed the wrong one there. And let's just see, that was GDP for all countries. Agricultural land under irrigation, there doesn't look like there was any data for that particular year. We can look through our list here. This is pretty cool. We could look at population for all countries. And so it kind of gives you an idea just how powerful this is, that you could have some kind of web report, interactive web report, that you can give to a whole bunch of users that they don't need to have access on their computers, Microsoft Access on their computers. Nice handy little app here that has all kinds of neat features. We can grab France here and grab agricultural land that doesn't have anything. We grab GDP, but you get the idea. This is super powerful. You can expose it on your LAN as a really cool little prototype application. If you do some deployment stuff, you can also deploy applications into the wild. So all around, Streamlit and Access are a dynamite combo, super powerful. This is one technology that cannot be overlooked when it comes to Microsoft Access and just doing simple web apps. Need more resources for your project? Make sure to check out the additional links in the description.